Danielle and Ralph, you have made and continue to make the choice to love one another purely. What began as an infatuation has blossomed into one of the most beautiful commitments that we could care to witness once Danielle noticed Ralph existed.
7 years ago, little did my daughter know that she had met the love of her life. But all Danielle would say to me, he's a nice guy, but I don't like him like that. Danielle came home for Christmas, and she looks at me and she says, well, and I'm like, well, what? She said, Ralph and I said, oh, are y'all finally gonna date? And she was like, yeah. And I'm like, I knew that was coming.
Literally, I think Mama either texted or called you. And I was like, who's this Ralph? And she's like, oh, so you met Ralph. And I was like, okay, so he's madly in love with Danielle and she doesn't know it, right? Danielle, I will never forget the day that you came up to me and you're like, so... Because I already knew the end of the sentence. And she's like, Ralph and I are finally dating. I was like, I had to take a moment to stop myself from doing this. So cool! Okay. So I had to stand there and be like, that's nice. Because we all saw this coming.
Danielle and Ralph's story is quite the story, but that story is why we're all here today.
I've been living on the edge of somewhere I don't know, and it feels like it just might crumble. I've been looking at the outside, fire and snow, searching for my own soul, hanging on the gallows, hanging on the gallows.
Ralph, thanks for making us proud. Danielle, thank you for bearing with Ralph.
Bongyang, you have done so much to make us proud. For example, we sent you to University of Xavier in Cincinnati to pursue undergraduate studies. You came back not with 1 degree, but with 2. But most importantly, you came back with Danielle.
I've been living on the edge of somewhere I don't know, and it feels like it just might crumble. I've been looking at the outside, fire and snow, searching for my own soul, hanging on the gallows, hanging on the gallows.
The commitments that you have made, are making, and will continue to make to each other are a way of saying to one another, remember all those things that we've promised and hoped and dreamed? I meant all of it. I meant every word.
I'll never forget the first time I heard you sing. I cried because it was so beautiful. And because you were already out of my league and I didn't need something else. Babe, you have picked me up when I was at my lowest and driven me to my highest.
And I think anyone that knows our story knows that you and I knew each other for a while. And up until that night when that random guy asked if he could dance with me, it wasn't the first time you told me that you liked me. Or the second, or the third, or the fourth. And it definitely wasn't the first time I said no. But it was in that moment when I realized that you had genuine care for me and you just wanted to make me happy, and your persistence finally broke through.
I promise to keep finding new adventures for us. I promise to support you in all of your passion projects. And when the time comes to have little Ralphies and little Danielles, I promise to make sure you never forget that you're the center of my life.
I'm so glad that I took a chance on us, and it has proven to be the second best decision I've ever made. The first is now saying yes to being your wife.
By the power of your love and commitment, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Ralph, you may kiss the bride. Friends and family, I present to you Mr. and Mrs. Ralph and Danielle Tanka.
And, we're all here gathered to celebrate not just their love, and also not just the last X amount of years, but however many years to come, infinity. Like, y'all's journey is just now beginning, even though it feels like it's been forever already. This is only the beginning.
I get to have the younger brother privileges of not having to say the important stuff, but just get to say a few fun stories and leave. He was explaining to me as a kid, 5 years younger, what the GOAT was, because I was very confused. And he said, yes, GOAT, it's an acronym. Greatest of them all. Now, doesn't that spell gotta? It did, and it still does, and yet the both of them have still managed to be the greatest of them all, or the GOATs.
He was heading to school a week early. For some reason, the dorm would not be ready. I found myself asking one more time, where did you say we're going to keep this van load of stuff? Pong Yang was specific with his response. Danielle says she will keep it in her room. As an African dad, I was faced immediately with the prospect of granting permission for something with somebody I hadn't met. Danielle stepped out. She had just come back from a soccer practice. And I looked at the stuff and I knew immediately that this day was coming.
One night, sophomore year, Danielle woke me up around 4 in the morning. She couldn't sleep because there was a cricket chirping somewhere in our apartment. I looked around for who knows how long and eventually caught it and released it outside. But lo and behold, no more than 10 minutes later, we heard another chirp. And I knew that my job was not finished. And this can serve as a reminder to you, Ralph, that when you think you've pleased Danielle, there's still more work to be done.